Hello and good day, everyone, and thank you very much for making our time to watch this presentation, which is a teaching workshop on the ArOY Youth campaign to help prepare our teachers for the nationwide intervention in Nigerian secondary schools. So this presentation will take us through when to teach, who to teach, how to teach, and what to teach. I'm Dr. Chrissy Fedier, an Associate Professor of Medicine with the Griffith University School of Medicine, Gold Coast, Australia. I'm also the founder and president of the OCI Foundation. And like I said, this is a workshop presentation on how to teach the students. So the whole idea of this presentation is to make sure that all the teachers engaged in the ArOY Youth campaign are on the same page and deliver the same message to the students across all senior secondary schools in Nigeria. First, we need to keep in mind the key aims of the ArOY Youth campaign. Our main mission is to make sure this campaign goes into the school curriculum across all senior secondary schools in Nigeria. So we intend to have them added to all the school curriculum. And to do this, we hope to make sure the governments and the school managers are on board with what we are doing. Including them in the civic education teachings, or any other suitable subject. So the whole idea of civic education is because it's the only compulsory subject for everyone in Nigerian secondary schools. But I mean, we're open to having this in any other subject. But for now, civic education is the one we've identified that's compulsory for everybody. Now, we intend to have all civic education teachers in the schools involved to be aware of the task at hand, because we'll be relying on them to deliver these teachings. Apart from the teachings, we also intend to make sure that questions for all civic education exams contain components of the ArOY Youth campaign, be it the midterm test exams or the end of year exams. Now, we also intend to ensure that the scores in each exam count towards the overall scores for the civic education subject. So to achieve this, what we intend to do is to make sure that this is built into the curriculum. So not just to have it taught, otherwise it's from day one in the curriculum and taught with marked out times for them along the terms and the years for the students as they go by, and then have them included in their midterm tests and in the end of year exams. Now, we've prepared a question pool that will serve as a guide for these exams and assessments. A copy will be provided to each school that is part of this ArOY Youth campaign. So make sure that you get a copy from the ArOY from the OCI Foundation and have it in the library or wherever the exam questions are. And from this pool of questions, you choose and modify as needed for your school. All right, so remember what we said, we're going to look at the when, who, how, and what to teach. So now we go to when and who to teach. Now, the teachings are for boys and girls, not just girls. So every young man and young woman in Nigerian senior secondary school is supposed to be part of this teaching. And it's supposed to be repeated for each term and for each class. So in SS1, you have it done in term 1, term 2, term 3. Same goes for SS2 and same goes for SS3. Each student gets taught and examined 9 times before graduating. So that's the importance of this, because we intend to have all the terms, like I said before. In SS1, it gets taught in first term, and then first term exam, second term exam, third term exam. And this is repeated as the same student group goes through SS2 and through SS3. So overall, we expect that they will be taught and examined 9 times before graduating. I mean, let's look at it. Even if you're the biggest dunce in Nigeria, you'd end up knowing the preventive measures of breast and cervical cancers. And that is the aim of the ArOY Youth campaign. And that's what differentiates this campaign from any other campaign. Because going by this, over the next 10 years, for virtually the lifetime of the person, they will not forget what's taught. Now, we advise each school to choose 2 different weeks when these subjects will be taught. It must be before the midterm exams. We're going to look at the specifics of this in the next slide. For example, week 3 may well be just for breast cancer. It's a 45-minute teaching, while week 4, may be for cervical cancer. Then the midterm test can come subsequently after that. Now we look at the how to teach. We've done the when and the who, so how to teach. Well, we expect that a total of 90 minutes will be needed for both cancer teachings. So both of them, 90 minutes in total. And we expect that the teachings will be separated for breast cancer and from cervical cancer. As we already advised in the previous slide, this can be about 1 week apart. Each teaching will last about 45 minutes. And we suggest that the first 45 minutes will include all aspects of breast cancer. This will be explained in the slides to come. So in week 3, like we suggested, we have 45 minutes mapped out for teaching breast cancer alone. In week 4, we have another 45 minutes mapped out for teaching cervical cancer. Again, the things to be covered in these 45 minutes will be explained in the subsequent slides. So still on how to teach. Now, the OCI Foundation donates the ArOY Youth campaign textbooks for all the libraries in all Nigerian senior secondary schools. So I believe that for you to be part of this, your school would have these textbooks already in the library. And we expect that these books will be vital for the teachers and for the students. So the teachers will use it to prepare their lectures and to also get trained themselves and make sure they don't forget anything. The students are expected to use this in between the classes to make sure that they prepare for the exams, to read at their own leisure times, and to prepare for any exam. Those books are to be returned to the libraries after use. Now, the teachings must cover all aspects of the teachings. Again, we'll see them in the subsequent slides. So for each of the teachings, for breast cancer, it should cover every aspect of breast cancer as advocated by the ArOY Youth campaign. Same goes for cervical cancer. Now, the OCI Survey Breast app is also there for a guide. So this app contains virtually everything in the textbooks, but it's available on your mobile phone. We expect this to be available to all the teachers because we expect the teachers to have the smartphones needed to download this. It is free. The students can be referred to the library to access the textbooks for reading and for exam preparations. But students with smartphones are welcome to download it on their phones as well. Now we'll go to the final bit, which is what to teach. So first up, we look at breast cancer. What do we teach the students on breast cancer? Remember, we have 45 minutes designated for breast cancer. We recommended week 3, but you can choose any week you like, so long as it comes before the midterm test. But the teachings for breast cancer must cover knowledge, general knowledge on breast cancers, knowledge on breast cancer screening, knowledge on breast cancer risk factors, knowledge on breast cancer symptoms, and on preventive practices. Now, the preventive practices here is basically the breast self-examination, which we'll talk about in detail. So for this teaching to be effective, we expect that 45 minutes should cover information about this. Now, we'll go through them one after the other. General knowledge, what do we expect the children to know? What do we expect our students to know? Well, the textbooks we have will be a guide for all the teachers, but this provides a summary. They're expected to know that breast cancer can affect any woman with a breast. It's more common for people above the age of 20 years, but we know that about 1% happens in those below 20, so they should know this. We also expect them to know that breast cancer is not exclusive to married women and it's not exclusive to women that are sexually active. It's also not only for pregnant women or those that have been pregnant in the past. It can happen even before you get pregnant. And it's not only for those who have started seeing their menstruations or those who have passed menstrual periods, which menopausal women, usually women above 50. It's also not only for women who have had previous breast cancer. So breast cancer can affect any woman with a breast. They need to know this. And not just for those with cancer in their family. So majority of women who develop breast cancer do not have a family history. Now about the screenings, things we expect the students to know. They need to understand that there are 3 different methods of breast cancer screening. One is the clinical breast examination, which is done by a doctor in a hospital. So the woman goes to a doctor in a hospital and gets her breast checked. This can be done by any woman at any age at any time. So any woman, any age, anytime can do the clinical breast examination by seeing her doctor. Imaging is the second way to screen for breast cancers. It's advisable for women from the age of 40 years. Now, this can be done earlier if there's a family history, if the woman is at high risk. And when it's started, it should be repeated every 2 years. So most women in Nigeria don't know this. So this applies to even you, the teachers watching this video. Imaging can be done through X-rays or through ultrasound. So you discuss with your doctor to determine which part. The students are expected to know this. Now, the last part of breast cancer screening is the breast self-examination. Now, we have to stress this fact. We have videos online and on our app, but these are not to be demonstrated in class. We only just mention this and tell them to check the textbooks or go online or download the app. I repeat, this breast self-examination is not to be demonstrated in class, please. It's done monthly by a woman on herself and can be done from any age. Now, the other part of breast cancer teaching is the risk factors. So what do we expect our students to know about the risk factors? Again, these are contained in the textbooks, but they need to know that the risk factor, things that increase the risk chances of getting breast cancer, include early onset of menstruation before the age of 11. So that increases the risk of breast cancer. Late cessation of menstruation. Most women will have their menstruation stopping between 47 and 51 years, but the longer this lasts, the higher the chance of breast cancer. Usually if it goes up to 53 years. Having many babies, usually more than 4, using the birth control pill, having someone in the family with a breast cancer, not involved in physical activities, all this can increase the risk of breast cancer, and not breastfeeding at all. So we expect them to know this. There's a few others. The textbooks again will highlight these things for everyone. Now, on the breast cancer early symptoms, we also expect to teach the students to know these things. Again, there's a lot more on the textbooks, but they should know that ulcers in the nipple can be an early symptom of breast cancer. A lump in the breast or swelling, lump in the armpit. Many people do not know this, but a lump in your armpit could be a sign of early breast cancer. A discharge in the nipple from one breast only. Coming from 2 breasts is usually not a big issue, but a discharge from one breast, particularly if there's blood in it, can be a sign. Dimpling of the skin on the breast is another sign, another symptom that our women should be made aware of. Now, the other aspect, again, remember all this should be taught within the 45 minutes. It should be brief, and I expect this to be completed within 20-30 minutes. But we should make sure for every teaching, all these aspects are covered. Preventive practices. Breast self-examination is the gold standard here. Recommended to be done by every woman at least once a month. And it should be done about 7 to 10 days from when the period started. So your period starts today, 7-10 days after, you should be able to do your breast examination and repeat it every month. The OCI Survey Breast app is designed to send reminders and motivate women to do this. And it's not just the reminders, it also contains the techniques and the steps in a video format. So this video is available on YouTube. If you search for it, you'll find it. It's also available on our breast app, the Survey Breast app, free of charge for everyone with the mobile app. I strongly advise all of us, including us watching these videos, to download this app and to share the app. So share it with all your contacts, your friends, your family, every group you belong to. Invite everyone to download it. It could be a lifesaver. Well, a few controversies on breast self-examination, which we might know, but we don't need to bother the students with this. There's no proof that it reduces death from breast cancer, so the deaths itself, but there are proofs that it can help detect early lesions that lead to breast cancer. There's also proof that it should be made part of being breast aware, and it helps a woman to know what her normal breasts look like, so that if anything changes, you can easily detect it. If you know your breast is small or your breasts are lumpy, any change down the line, if you're used to it, you can easily pick it up and then see your doctor. Now we go to the second aspect of what to teach, which is cervical cancer. So what do we teach them? What do we expect them to know on cervical cancers? Well, the entire 45 minutes of cervical cancer teaching must cover the following: the general knowledge on the cancers, its risk factors, its symptoms, screening and pap smears, the human papilloma virus, vaccinations, and preventive practices. So some of these are similar to what you have in cervical cancer, but there's a few unique things that are unique to cervical cancer. But the 45-minute teaching must include everything mentioned here. So we look at what we intend to cover. So knowledge and risk factors. Well, on the general knowledge, well, girls need to know what the cervix is. Many people do not know what the cervix is. Well, it's part of the female reproductive organ, so meaning that boys do not have the cervix. It's also called the neck of the womb and usually located between the womb, itself and the vagina. So the vagina is the one outside, the womb is inside. So the neck that connects them both is called the cervix. They also need to be made aware of what the risk factors are. Things like early onset of unprotected sexual activity, having multiple sexual partners, having many babies, usually more than four, having a sexually transmitted disease like HIV, like syphilis, like gonorrhea. All these will increase the risk of the chances of acquiring or contracting the HPV, which leads to cervical cancer. Also, having premarital sexual intercourse and lack of regular cervical cancer screening. So not screening yourself can increase the risk because then you don't pick up the lesions early. Among the teachings will be the symptoms. What can inform someone that, hey, there's cervical cancer here? Well, it may interest us to know that most times at the early stages, there are no symptoms. So most women with cervical cancer would not know they have it. So a bit scary, I know, which is why we are doing this, so that people will be aware and will try to screen themselves. When the cancer is advanced, that's when we have symptoms. And that can come in the form of irregular menstrual bleeding or bleeding in between cycles or abnormal vaginal bleeding of any kind. If this is happening to you, please see a doctor. Most times it's nothing, but we need to check it out. Bleeding after sexual intercourse, feeling tired, weight loss, and loss of appetite, vaginal discomfort or discharge that is smelly, odorous vaginal discharge. So these are signs of cervical cancer or symptoms of cervical cancer, but usually when it's advanced. In the early stages, usually there are no symptoms. There's a few other signs and symptoms, but these are in the textbooks and on our mobile phone at the survey breast app, which everyone should download. Now, other teachings will be include the screening. How do we screen for cervical cancer, knowing that the early stages we don't have a symptom? And if we wait till the symptoms appear, it may be too late. So we need to find a way to screen. There are three ways to do this. First is the pap smear, which is very common and the one that's available in Nigeria. The liquid-based cytology and the HPV testing are not very common, very expensive, and not available in Nigeria. But the pap smear is there for everyone. So we'll talk a bit more about it. It can help detect early cervical cancer. In developed countries, it's recommended every 2 years from the time the lady started sexual intercourse. If the person starts intercourse at early, say 15 years, it's recommended to be done from 18 years old. If you start it late, let's say 25 or so, then 2 years after that. But this is for the developed country. In Nigeria and other developing countries, it's recommended from the age of 30 years and again repeated every 2 years. Now we look at HPV. Again, we expect the students to be taught about HPV, the human papillomavirus. Now, it is sexually transmissible. I know I've had a lot of questions about this. Yes, it's a virus that's transmitted the same way HIV, the same way when the cough and the runny nose viruses, the virus is causing them are transmitted. But this one is true, sexual intercourse. And most times during the very first sexual activity, if it's not protected, if you don't use condoms. It's more easy to transmit in women who have sex at a very young age, usually in their teenage years. It's preventable if you can avoid sexual intercourse. So in reality, virgins or people who never have sexual engagements will not develop cervical cancer. This is a fact. It doesn't mean we should all avoid intercourse, but this is a fact to keep in mind. It's preventable if we use condoms all the time. So again, it's another good reason to promote the use of condoms. The HPV is responsible for nearly all cases of cervical cancers and is transmissible also by non-penetrative sex, so light skin-to-skin contact, oral sex. If the virus gets transmitted through the body fluid, it can develop to HPV. Now we look at the vaccinations. So the vaccinations, I've had a lot of questions on this. There are two vaccinations. There are two vaccines available. They both are effective and can protect against cervical cancers, and they're highly recommended by the WHO. They're effective and they're safe. So a lot of Nigerians will be scared, will oppose this vaccine because they have questions, but this vaccine is effective and it is safe. It's recommended for girls and boys, not just girls and boys from the age of 9 to 13. It doesn't mean older girls cannot have these vaccines, but it is when it's at its most ideal because it's best given before the onset of sexual intercourse. So to be effective, it's best to give this vaccine before the first exposure to sexual activity. It doesn't mean that people that are older or that are engaging in sex already cannot have it, but this is when it's at its most effective. When it's most effective. Now, the final slide is to look at the prevention. How do we prevent cervical cancers? Already we have an idea, but we'll just run through because we need to make sure that these are taught to the students. First, we need to know that the infections from cervical cancer, from HPV, can take 15 to 20 years before they become fully blown cancers in normal people and healthy people. For those with HIV or cancer or other immunosuppressed states, it can take 5 to 10 years before it develops into full-blown cancer. So that means we have enough time to screen ourselves. Now, we need to know that HPV can also cause other cancer. It's not just the cervical cancer. It can also cause cancers in the anus, in vulva, in the vagina, in the penis, and in the throat. We don't need to worry about this, but the girls or our young students need to know. It can also cause non-cancer diseases. So it's not just cancer that they cause. It can also cause other illnesses that are not cancer in the genitalia, in our nose, in our mouth, and in the lungs. So how do we prevent them? Well, through the vaccinations. So I've mentioned the vaccinations. There are two different types. If you talk to your doctor, they'll tell you how to get them. Circumcisions for the males. Now, we've not talked about males. They have the same viruses, but they do not get on well with it. They may get other cancers, but not, they may get other diseases rather, but not the cancers. So circumcising males will help prevent, the transmission of these viruses to our women. Use of condoms for asexual intercourse is also one way to prevent it. Of course, adopting good, healthy lifestyles like not smoking, just not drinking. Even though they don't cause the viruses to get transmitted, they can facilitate, unprotected sex and all that. This is the end of this presentation. Thank you very much for listening. We must arm our youths, and we must do this while they are young, and we must do it for everyone, and we must do this right now. Thank you very much. Bye bye.